Hi, everyone. Welcome back for office hours for week 2 of the capstone course. What I plan on doing today is just going through the message boards, the forums, looking at some of the questions that have been coming up, and trying to answer those, as well as taking any of the questions that people might have live as I'm talking. So let me just jump on real quick and make sure I don't have anyone waiting on me. I apologize. There's going to be a lot of looking up and looking down, just trying to do the best I can to make sure I've got as many questions as possible before the end of the week. And Sal, you'll let me know if anyone posts. All right, great. All right. Right here. And all right, there we go. It actually looked kind of dead to me, so now I've got it going. So during this week, we've been focusing on the wireframes and the sketches, and as I expected, as most of my students do, people have been really kind of getting hung up on the requirements. What do I need to do and how do I need to do it? This is very normal because it's kind of scary to get started at first and decide, jumping in there and doing things. And we've been coding for so long now. A lot of people have made this really weird jump where they actually feel more comfortable coding than thinking, actually thinking about what it is they want to do. So let's talk about some of those sketches and wireframes that have been coming in, and also some of the comments that people have been leaving for one another. The way this assignment works is that you will receive 4 points from your peers. So 3 people will review your submission, at least 3, and then only the top score is kept. So if 2 people give you a 4 and someone else gives you a 0, that's fine. You're going to keep that 4. Unfortunately, that also means that if you do, not the greatest work and everyone gives you a 0 except for one person who wasn't paying attention and they gave you a 4, well, luckily for you, you get that 4, but you didn't really learn anything from it. So that's where 4 out of the 10 points are coming. The other 6 points are actually coming from your reviews. So if you're looking at your score right now and you have a 40% or a 60% or, just not 100 yet, the reason probably is that you have not completed enough reviews. Or, and this is a really big or here, or you've completed the reviews, but as we're going through the reviews, we see that you didn't actually leave any comments. If you simply give someone else a number grade, but you don't tell them why, even if it's a 4, we reserve the right to remove that review. And there's 2 reasons for doing that. One, everyone deserves a well thought out review. They've put work into this, and the whole point is to help them think about the project they're going to create. So if you don't give them any feedback, you've kind of cheated them out of an opportunity. So when we remove your review, that opens it up for someone else to come in and give them a review. Secondly, looking at someone else's and reviewing them, it is a learning experience for you. It may seem like extra work, but you're going to get a lot out of it when you think about what you liked about their submission, maybe what you didn't like about their submission, maybe something even you're just still a little bit confused about. So you need to submit your sketches and you need to submit 3 good reviews. And we're being very lenient with the word good, but you need to put some sort of comments in there. And that's how you'll get full credit on your assignment. So I've also been going through some of the assignments as well as our course grader, Diana. So whenever you see instructor notes, this may not reflect in your grade, but it's just extra little things we wanted to let you know. And so here's some of the things I wanted to mention people during this hour. First of all, you need to use your comment section when you're submitting. I know that people have different levels of comfort with being on camera, or maybe they're English. Really, for any reason, sometimes people don't want to talk on camera, and that is absolutely fine. However, if you're not going to talk on camera, make sure in the comments section, when you upload, you put a lot of really good comments to help the graders follow along. No matter what you do with your website, whether you ever make another website or not, being able to code is great, but it's not enough. You need to be able to feel confident enough to explain the choices you've made. And what you'll probably learn is that other people aren't as confident as you. So as long as you give them a reason, any reason at all, for the design choices you make, they're going to go with it. So give us a reason to give you full credit. Go in and say, mine looks really plain, and I did that on purpose because maybe my audience is one that doesn't understand English, or I really like a sparse look. As long as you can give us a reason, we can give you the points. I've got some other here. I wanted to talk about what's considered back-end programming. We've been doing front-end design, and that's the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, how things look. When we did the JavaScript, we did a little bit with form validation because that's fun. Form validation is kind of a cool, easy way to use JavaScript. However, if you're going to use a form, or you plan on using a form for your web page, I need you to understand that you know how to create a form and design one, but you don't actually know how to read the information yet. In order to save that information, most people use what's called backend programming, where they use PHP or Python or something like that. We didn't do that in the front end course. That's a backend or full stack web development programming. So you have a few choices. You can create your form and just not have it actually work. You can show that you can design one nicely. You can put in the JavaScript for the validation. That's fine. However, if you plan on actually hosting your site and putting it live, that's not a great idea, because people who go to your site are going to expect that things that are there are going to work. So 2 ideas I kind of just came up with off the top of my head right before office hours is that people might want to consider linking to something like a Google form. Google Forms are pretty easy to create. There are other third-party forms out there. People use Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey. So what you can do is you can have your page link to the form, and then it's a lot easier for you to actually see the data, manipulate the data. Another thing you can do is you can use something called a mail to link. And how the mail to link works is it looks just like a hyperlink when you click on it. But when you click on it, instead of going to a different page, it's actually going to open up your mail server. And so it'll pop up, and you can pre-put in there where you want the mail to go. You can also hard code the subject line and different things like that. So if you are simply trying to create something where you can have somebody send you an email, a blank email, you can use the mail to link. If you're feeling really ambitious, you can combine the mail to link with some JavaScript, where it can go in and it can read some of the form fields and put it into that email for you. Okay, so when we go from there, one of the things I wanted to mention is, I said it's really ambitious to have that JavaScript add on some sort of email to you. So when we talk about being ambitious in this course, that's going to lead us to the extras section of the assignment. Some people have been asking, what constitutes an extra? In fact, let me go to the question right up here. Hopefully I can find it. Oh, back here. I have Sunny posted the other day about she's having a hard time grasping the idea of what is and isn't considered an extra. Some of the ideas that she has up there is perhaps an image carousel, Lightbox to kind of expand the thumbnail images, using Bootstrap 3 to make the site more responsive, a table that would be updated with the different standings, and then also doing a JavaScript using some sort of Bootstrap plugin for making that table dynamic. So these were 5 really interesting ideas, and I want to hit on each one of those and talk about why they would or wouldn't make a great extra. And in this case, they all are. So in the image carousel, I have some code for you in one of the weeks where I show you how Bootstrap does an image carousel. And we talk about how you would put the code in, how you need to link your images instead of their images, how there's a really good chance that the size they use is not the same size you would use. A lot of the examples out on the web have the styling inside the HTML tag, which, as you know, is a no. We don't want to do that. So doing a carousel is a really great idea because I think you would understand most of the code that you're using, but you would still need to go in there and make minor tweaks and changes to get it to work. And if you're like me, you'll be surprised at how long it does take you because there are always these different typos you have to think about. Did you put their pictures in the right file? Did you link to the file the right way? Did you make sure that any of the classes you borrowed from Bootstrap, you have the right spelling? So an image carousel is absolutely an extra. And depending upon how you do it, it might even constitute 2 extras because you can go in and you can do a carousel and make extra steps to make sure that it's accessible. So you kind of double dip on that one. She mentioned a light box to expand the images. So with the light box, when you click on the image, it goes from just being a simple image to something that kind of pops up on the screen. You have a bigger picture and you can click off to the side to make it go away. Absolutely a great extra. The Bootstrap 3. Now, using Bootstrap in itself is not an extra because we talk about how you can use these templates and frameworks as one of your choices for implementing your site. While it's not necessarily an extra to use Bootstrap 3, it would be an extra if you did something with Bootstrap that wasn't required. So if your site is simply responsive and you use Bootstrap, that's not an extra because it's already required for your site to be responsive. However, if the requirement is to have 2 views and you do 3 views, that would definitely be an extra. I would consider getting the drop-down box an extra. And that's because you'd have to make sure that you have your JavaScript working as well. So simply including a link to Bootstrap 3 and using some of their default styling, not quite good enough, but doing anything that's above and beyond what's required for the class, absolutely. And then the idea of using a table by itself is not really an extra because we did that in the CSS class. In the CSS, one of the assignments was to make a table and style it. So we've done that before. I'm not saying not to put the table in your page. I'm just saying it wouldn't count as an extra. However, if you added JavaScript to that table, maybe for sorting different links, that is something you could do that I think would work well. Okay. All right, but that was a good question. I like questions like that where people try to be as specific as possible so I can answer to it. Plus, it's a way for your fellow students to kind of be like, oh, well, that's a really great idea. I think I might try that too. Oh, okay. So Richard just posted into the discussion section a question. A quick note, like I said, I'm happy to go through the forums during these live office hours, but it's a lot easier for me to find your questions if you go into the Google Hangout. When you click on the arrow button to kind of join, you should be able to see something off to the side that says, well, hopefully it won't continue to say, be the first to ask a question, but you can ask a new question. If you post your questions there during office hours, they'll pop up a lot quicker. When I go through questions on the forums, it's actually very confusing. I click on the question, then I've got to scroll, and if it wasn't the very last question asked, I end up searching for people's names. So as you're asking questions, if you could put them into the live office hours, great. If not, I'll keep checking the forums. I actually was kind of hoping to show some examples of the wireframes and sketches for you. But as you can see, the setup for this room is that it's kind of me and my laptop, and you don't get a view of my laptop. But depending on whichever section you go to, when you go to submit your homework, I have it set up that you can see other people's submissions before you submit your own. So let me kind of describe what it looks like here for just a second. I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on the assignment, and I'm going to kind of click in the open tool. You will see an option that says view student submissions, or you should be able to see that, hopefully. If you click on that, you can see the submissions that other people have made. If you can't for some reason and you're feeling very unsure, you can always submit a dummy submission. Go in there, say, all right, I'm making a video, but to be honest, I don't really want to use this one. I just want to see other people's submissions. That's fine. I've really opened up this course so that if you aren't happy with your submission, you can resubmit and keep resubmitting over and over again. If you have trouble and you can't resubmit, you submitted once, if you post into the forums and you tell me which section you submitted in, I can go in and by hand, I can delete your submission. Okay. But if you're on there and people want to kind of talk about different ones that the option they want, they're from scratch, from a template, or from the frameworks, I can mention some of the students. I kind of took notes off to the side here for a little bit. One of the first people to submit was Bruno. So way to go, Bruno. It's always hard to be the first one to take the dive in and jump in there. I don't know if Bruno being the first person to submit was a good thing or not, because he did a above and beyond called for submission. He had a full video. He had the sketches that were not even by hand. They were kind of very professionally done. And it was a very complete submission, very impressive, which is great for Bruno. He's going to get great feedback from students because he spelled out exactly what he's going to do. But don't let him scare you off. I also had a submission by, and I'm going to mess up your name and I apologize, but I believe it's Arshia. And hers was never saw her face. She drew it on a piece of paper and she slowly kind of displayed it to us. First her large screen view and then her mobile view. And to be honest, her submission was exactly what I had in mind when I came up with this assignment, was this idea of try not to stress too much. Just draw some stuff out. When you draw it, more than likely it's going to give you some ideas and make you think, but it's so important to put it on paper first. So later, if you get stuck, you can kind of just click on something and be like, oh, okay, yep, this is the part I wanted to work on. Okay. So I don't have one that I can show you right now live during office hours. And I'm playing with being able to provide people with a link to the different ones that I talked about today. But we're getting like some session errors and things like that. It's one of the downfalls of having your assignments behind a course is that we don't have links to the sketches right there. Okay. Right here. Oh, got someone over here.
There you go. There's one up here.
Yay. Oh. All right. So we have a question here. First question of the day. Thank you. If we were here at class, I would throw candy or something at you like I do with my students when they finally pop up. The question is drop-down menus, trying to get a drop-down menu to work. And hey, is it okay if I use code snippets on the web? Absolutely. I mean, that is how most of us go about. We try coding something and then we think, oh, wait, I wonder if there's something that's already out there. So if you were trying to do drop-down menus, for instance, someone earlier today was in their sketch, they talked about they would like to use the keyboard to trigger certain events. First thing I did after reading their description is I went into my search bar and I typed in JavaScript, keyboard, activate. You know, I think those were the words that first came up to my head. And as I went through, I was like, okay, it's actually, we want to look for the key press and then you could look at little bits of code for that. So I absolutely expect people to go out and find snippets of code, but what I really want you to do is after you put that snippet of code in, run the code through the validator. Let's make sure you didn't just add something that's going to make your page inaccessible. Or what someone else mentioned is when you use other people's snippets of code, what happens if it's really slow or you're not completely sure what's going on? So we are going to jump to a screenshot here for just a second. And the website that I'm going to take you to is called winespto.org. All right, and let's see if we can get to that site. And what we're going to do is we're going to reload the site and kind of see how long it takes to pop up. Sometimes it's really fast. Other times it's unbelievably slow. So, oh, good. I'm actually glad it took a little bit of time there. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this site is that you can see off to the right, I have the inspect element open. But normally when we have inspect element open, you see the HTML and the CSS. But this time I've highlighted the network tab, not the elements, but the network up on the top. And when you do that and you refresh the page again, you can actually see each of the files that are being loaded. So if you're linking to someone else's JavaScript or you're linking to someone else's CSS, you can see that, this file right here is really slowing down my page. I wonder what's going on. The reason I know this is because somewhere on this page we have a donate link, and it was really slowing down the page, but it was provided by a third party. So we did not want to get rid of our donate link. I think it's, yeah, maybe not. Oh, that must be it. We're not selling anything right now. So the page is really sped up. But normally there's a link to buy things, and that can really slow down the page. So if you're going to do some sort of other code that you didn't write, 1, validate it using the W3 validator. 2, if you can, validate it using the Wave validator through WebAIM. That will only work if you've deployed it. And then 3, you also may want to just check and make sure it's not slowing down your code. But if you do use it, as far as giving credit, I often will put inside comments in my page links. You know, this code was used from here, and you include a link right there. Now, search the page and do check and make sure there isn't any copyright. But typically, code, when it's out there, it's a free and open domain for using JavaScript and things like that. If you can't use their pictures, but JavaScript snippets are you can absolutely use that. Okay, thanks for asking. All right, go back here.
Back to you.
Oh, what was that? Yes, thanks. All right, I'm going to go back to the question form for just a second. And let me go by. Oh, okay. There's a few that I haven't answered yet, so I can go ahead and answer them right now, and then I'll go back to. Oh, well, I have someone, Adam, is saying that he doesn't have access to the old homework anymore. And for some reason, the photo gallery homework didn't save on my CodePen, and I was hoping to revisit the JavaScript photo gallery assignment. This is very interesting because I believe that most people have access to any of their old, you should be able to go back to any of your Coursera work and see the different things that you have on there. Even if the session has ended, you know, your work is there. So you might, I'm curious if other students get a chance to reply to Adam. It's in the general discussion to see if that's happened to them. My first suggestion would be to contact Coursera, or actually check the Coursera frequently asked questions. That's the best way to go, because contacting them directly can take a little bit of time. Second, if other students have had this issue and they're not sure, and this has happened to them and they fixed it, we'd love to hear why. For the CodePen, I'm surprised you didn't save on your CodePen. However, I'm happy to go in after these office hours, and I will go into your form question and link back to my CodePen examples. So at least you have those readily available, and I can put them in for you, so you can access them. one of the things that I didn't do in this course is put very many links back to previous content, partly because my links are separate from yours. I have the instructor view and you have the student view, so people went in. But I'm happy if you're trying to remember, oh, I know we covered this, but I can't remember when it was. Go ahead and bring that up. Someone else may have already looked it up before me. If they did, great. Otherwise, I'm happy to kind of take a look at what's on there. Okay. All right. Here. Oh, great. Another question. How do I join the office hour? That doesn't see a link anywhere. Let me, if you go into, what was that?
I can send a link to them if they need it. Or do you want to post on the forum?
Yeah, it's posted on the forum under week 2, but I'm going to take a moment just because it sounds like people don't have it. And I will send out an email right now while we're doing it. So give me 1 second of dead air time while I try to do this for you. It's the same link no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, communication. Office hours now. Here. All right, let me double check this before I go anywhere so I don't send you all the wrong link, because I tend to do things like that. All right. And send. All right. All right, so I went ahead and thank you, Richard, for asking for the link again. If anyone didn't get the email, for every week, we've got the discussion section. In week 2, I went into the announcement for office hours and put in there. Actually, okay, so we'll go ahead and go back there. And then if I don't see any newer questions, I'll go ahead and go back to my list of ones that I've kind of prepared. Go back in here. One of the things that people were having issues with was warp wire. And so uploading videos, and there was an issue. It wasn't your fault for the first few days. There were some permission issues. Those should be all completely fixed, and everyone else has had a chance to upload. There's only one student I've encountered who's still having some issues, and I'm waiting to find out how large the video was that he was trying to upload. In general, it's meant to be straightforward. You don't need to download any new software. If you simply click on the open tool, you can kind of go in. I included a video of myself using it. It's in the living room. I hold up like finger paint pictures and things like that. So hopefully that helped people get over the hump of doing that. I really wanted people to use WarpWire in that week 1 to introduce themselves, because when it comes to the end of the semester or end of the course and you're stressed, you don't want to be playing with that then. It's a lot easier if you can get it down now. If you didn't use audio in your introduction, that's fine, but I actually recommend that you play with it and see if you can use audio. There's a number of students who've been a little bit nervous about their English, and every single one that I've looked over so far has been really very good. You need to remember that I'm very impressed by anyone who has made that kind of effort to go off and be able to communicate in another language, because I know a little bit. I was very proud of myself when I looked at somebody's German submission the other day and recognized Mayor was more, and my high school teacher will be very proud of me. But you all do a much better job than I've got going on that. Okay. All right, let me do most. All right. One of the questions has been, do you have to use WarpWire in order to do your demos? You don't need to use WarpWire in order to create your video. We just wanted to give a free way that people can create a video without having to use any extra software. However, if you already use something else, maybe Camtasia or maybe QuickTime or just anything else at all on your computer, you can absolutely still use that. In fact, it might be easier later because if you want to use screenshots or screen capture, WarpWire cannot do that right now. So you can use any software you want, but when it comes time to upload it, you just need to use WarpWire to upload it. So there is an option for right there. Let me go back in here. One of the things that I wanted to mention, I'm looking at another student, I believe it was Christos. Yeah, Christos went ahead and included a link to his site. And we're playing like a really kind of general balance here between wanting to be encouraging to each other and also you want to help your peers make the best possible page they can make. So I kind of used Christos as an example, and he said he was okay with that and he didn't mind. For his site, when I went to it, it was a very well done site, but we can always make our sites better. It's actually dangerous because if you start doing web design, you can think, oh, I'm going to work on this for an hour. I just need to make it blue. And then 7 hours later, when you realize you've used 27 different shades of blue and your brother or sister or spouse can't tell you've done anything, but you've just spent 7 hours doing it, it can be hard because you always want to make it better. So when you submit links, I want you to look very critically at each other's submissions. If you see a typo, letting your fellow students know that there is a typo is not being insulting. It should not be taken as being insulting. It's saying, this is a great site and it deserves to be as perfect as it can be. So if you see grammatical mistakes or typographical, typos, say it nicely, but make sure to point it out. If you happen to be colorblind, this would be a great chance for you to say, hey, everybody, make your pages good enough for me. Yesterday, I added a new optional link onto one of the modules. Just came out. It talks about how 4% of the population is colorblind and just these small, very simple steps you can do to make your site more accessible. One, I put it there so people can improve their sites. And two, I put it there so you could feel kind of smart, because my guess is you'll read that article and say, oh, I already knew that. Oh, I'm already doing that. And as I said, the point of this capstone is really a celebration of everything you've learned so far. I want you to be proud of what you've learned. I want you to be proud of what you're going to create in these next few weeks. Go back here. I'm not sure if Richard was able to get in on there. And let me go back here. All right. So one of the next questions, that kind of general class of questions I've been getting, is do I need to do this, or do I need to do that? What's going to happen if I'm using Bootstrap or a plugin and now my site doesn't validate? Well, if your site doesn't validate, you will probably lose points and you're going to live with that. And that's absolutely fine. People shouldn't go for the points like 100%. I know there's this feeling of I want to get 100% and I want to get 100%. If there's something you really like about your page and you cannot get it to work and still follow the very strict W3 standards, this is where I talk about the ability to defend your choices. You can go in and you can say, look, I put in this great plugin for a calendar. It works with Google Calendar, and now I can follow it on my iPhone. I really love this functionality, and it causes one validation error because it uses an ampersand. I would probably still give you full credit. is there a chance that one of your peers is going to say, that's really great, but I'm going to give you 8 instead of 10 or 6 instead of 10? Absolutely. That might happen. And that's part of the trade-offs of design, is deciding what things are really important to you versus what things are important for somebody else. Here. Threads. All right. All right, so it's kind of speaking of those extras and things that went on here. We did have a question that I was a little worried was going to scare off a lot of people. It was a question that's basically, can they use ASP.NET? He's been using a Microsoft.NET framework. He's got a lot of things going on in his submission. It sounded like a really cool page. And he wanted to know, is this acceptable for a capstone? Because it's not all his code. He's not hand coding this. A lot of it's going to be automatically generated, and then he's going to make the modifications to have it do what he wants it to do. The most important thing, if you're doing something really kind of advanced for this course, is it is your job to explain it to your peers. It is not your peers' job to understand the really cool stuff you did. You're going to want to take a little bit of time and talk about the things you did, and then relay kind of the things you learned to other people in a way that they can understand it. And as I said, they might take a few points off here or there. That's going to be okay. The follow-up question that he gave me was, all right, that sounds great, sounds good. He wants to make sure, does your site need to be deployed? Do you need to use a hosting site and put it out there? Absolutely not. I am okay if people do what we call host their site locally. If your site is local, that means it's running on your computer and only you can see it. If you're not sure if your site is local or deployed, go up to the top of the URL where your Chrome or your Firefox, and if you see something that looks like C:desktop, web design, and then your file name, that means you're running it locally on your computer. If you see www, if you see the domain name, something with .com, .edu, then you're looking at a deployed site. So if you deploy your site, you can go ahead and post your link to the submission, but you still need to explain the different things you did. At first, I wasn't even going to allow people to use deployed submissions. It makes me nervous. I don't like the idea of requiring students to go off to websites that I haven't looked at myself. However, we talked about it, and with kind of the smaller size of this capstone and the fact that, we're all you've been all the way through these 5 courses, it's unlikely you've done this just to put up malicious code. We're letting people post their URLs with the caveat, with the disclaimer that, if you don't feel comfortable grading other URLs, go ahead and go to a different submission. Go ahead and pick something else. I may, to be honest, grade a lot of the URLs via my phone because it's a little harder for you to mess with me that way. But you do not need to deploy it. If you don't deploy it, again, just make sure that you have screenshots or descriptions. This is where you're going to want your video to really kind of show off your site because people can't see it. And this is especially true for the responsive part. It doesn't do any good for you to tell us about your page. If in a video you could actually resize your screen window, great. Or if you can take a screenshot of it on a small view and a large view, even better. But you do not need to deploy it. Let me see this question that came in. All right, so the question is about JavaScript, and it's kind of about swapping text in and out. So you have this inner.html, the ability to change the text that's on your page. But then we also had the hover, the idea of your picture going. One of the kind of things that I found tricky when doing JavaScript with images was the idea that when you hover, depending on where you put your mouse, it's hard to tell if you're hovering or not, and it might be getting bigger or smaller, and it got really jerky and jumpy for me. So if you're trying to do something like that, one of the things you can do is you can use animation, the CSS animation, where everything kind of transitions slowly. Instead of having a picture go from small to big all of a sudden, go ahead and add that transition so it takes a second to get from big to small or back from small to big. If there's specific things like, hey, I've got this snippet of code and I really tried to get it to work and I just couldn't, that's what the forums are for. In earlier courses, we were really opposed to people sharing code. In this class, share away. I'm perfectly okay with it because everyone's doing a different project. Even better, if you could include links to your code pen, we can go and see it work in real time. One of the things that people are discovering is that when you copy and paste your code into the forum, it eliminates all the indentation and it makes it really ugly to read. So it makes me incredibly happy when I'm on the forums and I see people say, oh, I can't read your code because it's not indented, because that means I'm turning you into very uptight anal programmers like myself, and that makes me all warm and fuzzy and happy. So if you want to share code to get help with something specific like this JavaScript question, go ahead, put it in CodePen. Don't worry if it doesn't work. That's what friends and peers are for. We can kind of take a look at it. The other really nice part about that, when you share your code, is that I might be looking at it in Chrome and someone else Firefox and someone else Internet Explorer. And this way you're having people kind of test your code for you and debug it rather than you opening up all the browsers yourself. So Joel, if there's a very specific thing, I'm not sure which week you'd put that in. You could put it in general discussion, and then we as a group can kind of take a look at your code that way. A side note, hovering, definitely an extra. I know people are looking for that. All right. I've got a question from Maria about the office hours.
Where's the question?
No, on the forums, I think. Oh, Maria's just helping out by reposting the link. So thank you for doing that. Let me do this right here. So the last thing, we've got a few more minutes. One of the things I wanted to talk about was using the forums. I wanted to kind of let you know how I've been using it, because it always, one of the benefits of watching this office hours is that maybe you can game the system so that I get to your question before I get to other people's questions. But one of the things to know is that the way it shows up is for me, just like for you, when I go to the forums, I can look at week 1, week 2. To be honest, I tend to go directly to whatever week we're at. So this week I've been going to week 2 first and seeing if there's anything new there. Then I go to all threads, so I can see all the questions that have been posted all together. If you post something in the forum, I don't know where you posted it. It just brings me to the beginning of the forum and I kind of scroll down and go to the end and look for the people's names. I am usually able to click directly on somebody's name, but that doesn't always work. So if it's a new question, try to kind of post that as its own separate thing, not in a reply to somebody else, because it's harder for me to find that. And in general, I go through, and if I'm the last person, usually you can kind of look at each of the questions and see instructor replied, instructor created, instructor replied. I go in, and if I see instructor replied, I tend to not look at it again unless someone posts something really new. So if I've replied to it, but I didn't really answer your question in the way that you were hoping, please make sure you post again, because I'm unlikely to look again. All right. Oh, my battery is running low, but we should last a few more minutes. The next question was from Don in the forums, and it was, should we be submitting wireframes for all of the pages? You don't need to do that if they have the same general look on each, if every page has that same general look. Some sites like to have what's called like a splash page or an opening page, and it has a much different look than the other ones. I actually do encourage you to kind of hold that up and show people. The more you give people to look at, the more feedback they're able to give to you. I did have a few submissions where it was just a picture of two different views, but no text and no audio. And good job. The peers tried their best to give them some feedback, but it was really hard to get the idea. Responsive, we tend to talk about responsive in forms of layout, like, oh, here are my two different views. But responsive can also take into account any of that JavaScript you're going to use. How is this page going to respond to clicks or tabs or different things like that? So, embrace that idea. Try to do something a little different. I don't want people spending hours and hours on this. I really just want to kind of get the conversation started, get your brain going with some of the different things you would like to do. There we go. Back in there. All right. Let's see if I have any other unanswered questions just on the thread so I can get to them before we go. Someone, there is a question that someone posted about hosting. And I do have a discussion forum, I believe in week 4 or 5 about hosting. But like we talked about last week, I think this is a really great conversation to have now. If people know of a good host, probably preferably free, it's really nice to know that you're not the first person using this. So you can go onto the forums and ask questions and kind of get support for how the things work. One of the examples I show of using ByteHost in the later weeks was that it took me a while to figure out that there was no submit button. Instead, it was just a check mark. And that confused me for more time than I'm willing to admit before I realized, oh, I got to hit that button to make things upload. So go ahead and kind of let each other know if you're using a hosting site, which one you use. I noticed in a lot of the week 1 or week 2, actually, it was week 1, discussions of what people's sites are going to be about. If you plan on using videos or images, realize that a free site may not be able to support everything you want to save there, particularly if you want to save the videos on your host. What you can do instead is pay for a more premium service, or you may want to link your videos from another site. So link it to YouTube or another video hosting site. But you should be aware that not everyone has access to YouTube. So if you're going to do that, make a note in your submission so that students who may be peer grading from countries that don't have access to YouTube, they can still get the general idea of what's going on there. Okay, go back here. All right. Sorry, my computer is slow. I've got one more question I'm going to go to here. It's from Maria. All right. Okay, so one of the questions was about the video submissions. It's just kind of along the idea of if you feel that your English is not great, one, let me tell you, it probably is, but there have absolutely been some people who have not included any audio on their site at all. It's been kind of interesting. Some did. I haven't seen anyone do real captions before, but I've seen some people just write out what they want to say and hold up little notes, and their penmanship is amazing. So hats off to you. If you have a strong accent, you can also just kind of realize that there are other students who maybe speak the same native language as yours, and they won't even notice at all. For the duration of the video, I've seen as short as, I think the shortest was 3 seconds. That was a little short. Some of the other ones seem to be more around 4 minutes. With Warp Wire, you don't see how long it is on the screen. And so I found that most people were able to explain their wireframes in about 60 to 90 seconds, just kind of depending upon how much they were talking about. The more complete your picture, the more you're going to be able to just kind of point to things and give people the general idea. You can also, with the videos, when you upload it, there's a comment section. And so I'm really encouraging people to don't have a lot of audio inside their submission, to just type in all the things you're really hoping for people to understand. Even if you talk about it, it's a great way for people who maybe don't understand English as well to have a way to hear it and read it, and make their life easier. Again, you want to make the peer graders happy, because they're going to be looking at your stuff, and you want to feel confident in what you're grading as well. So I wouldn't worry about this. Again, this is not a course on English, right? This is a course on web design. You might have even noticed that this wire sketch is only worth 8% of your grade. So really, I want you to just feel comfortable with the technology and kind of get used to it on that line. My computer just died, so I'm going to ask Sai if there's any more questions up there.
Yeah, it says, can GitHub, specifically GitHub pages, be used as a hosting site?
You can use GitHub as a hosting site. When you do that, that's a good question, and I think I'm actually post some information on that one. One of the things that sometimes people who use GitHub get confused about, though, is you want to make sure that you're hosting your pages on GitHub. If you give me a URL and I click on it, I should see your page rendered on GitHub. So your URL would be GitHub, blah, 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 blah. But I would see, a very nice page. Sometimes people get a little bit confused and they post a link, and when I click on their link, instead of seeing a nice displayed or rendered page, I see your actual code, or I see links to your code. I do want to see your code, but I don't want to see your code when you send me the link. Your submission should be a nice looking page that I can look at. But looking into GitHub for hosting, that's a great idea. I will absolutely spend the next day or two going into the hosting section of this course and writing up a little bit about how people can use GitHub without knowing how to use GitHub, how they can use GitHub to host some of their sites. Thank you for that question. That's a great idea.
And is there somewhere on the forums I can go to check for?
Oh, for me? I think, well, how much time do we have right now?
Yeah, like 6 minutes.
6 minutes? I don't know. So I think I'm completely dead. So I'm good if you don't want to do the forums along that line. What I can basically just kind of finish up with us saying, we can maybe die early, sneak out of office hours early, is I will not be having office hours next week. I just wanted to let people know I'm going to be somewhat off the grid for next week. But we've left it which might be the worst possible time. It might be the best possible time, because I'm hoping people will kind of be like, oh, this means I've got to get started, or you can't procrastinate any longer. We'll still have our COL and our mentors on there, and I'm really hoping you all will be able to talk to each other and encourage each other. Get something coded. All right, it's time. I had you do your picture so you could look at your picture, be done. It's time to jump in and just start creating something. I can't stress enough that you should start small, and you should get one page to work. Get one page to work, then go and validate that page, and then go and do an accessibility test on that page before you do your other pages. Because it's so much nicer when you have one nice clean file that you can then copy 3 or 4 times to make your other pages. Because otherwise you're going to be like me and like everyone else and do it the wrong way and make 4 pages and then realize, oh, I made a mistake, and you've got to go change it on all 4 pages. And then you realize you made another mistake and you've got to go change it on 4 pages. So go out there, just get a nice little clean site. Don't worry about too much CSS. Don't spend too much time agonizing over the colors or the fonts. Pick something basic. In last week's office hours, we discovered and talked about some of the different color schemes people can use. You don't have to watch the office hours to find those. If you go back into week 1 in the discussion forum, or I went actually in week 1 of the course content, I put in some links from office hours, and those included links to different images, icons, and also some of the color schemes. I wouldn't be afraid of looking ahead at some of the demo videos I did showing how to use light boxes and calendars, but don't jump into those yet. Like I said, get something very clean and simple and syntactically correct done first, and then slowly add in one cool thing at a time. If you're using a template, it's kind of the opposite idea. Get that template, start taking things out. Don't add things. Start by taking everything out that you don't want or you don't understand, and then you can kind of slowly add from there. So was that a new question up there, or is that a old one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The people who are using Bootstrap, people who are using Bootstrap, I did the accessibility test and get warning, how bad is this?
Oh.
And I get a warning, how bad is this?
Great. That's a really good question. Warnings actually are fine for the accessibility testing. For the validator, the W3 validator, you will always get warnings. I'd be surprised if you didn't get at least one warning, because they usually have a warning that says, we cannot guarantee that this is all correct. So you do not need to worry about warnings at all. It's the errors you want to look at. And if you come up with an error, what I would do is I would copy and paste that error. I would put it into my search bar, and I would go and find like the first 2 or 3 responses that you get. And then I usually scroll down, because the first person to answer is usually just blah. They just they just want to be first. It's usually like the second or third person who's actually thought about it who comes up with a really nice answer. And if you spend that time, so you spend 10, 15 minutes researching what the error is and whether or not you can fix it and why not, you just did a great job. You can go in, and when you submit, you can say, my site has this error. This is why the error exists, and this is why I've kept it, and that's why I should still get full points even though it caused this one error. Now, if when you do this, it generates 57 errors, don't forget they propagate, which is just that fancy term for one error causes another, which causes another. So fix the first 2 or 3, run it again, and see if you can get it down. But never worry about the warnings. Is that it?
Looks like it. We got a minute left.
All right, so we've got a minute left. Thanks for the people who stopped by. I'll try to make sure that I'll send out an email with that link again. I did it last week and I didn't for this week for some reason. So our next office hours are July 5th, I believe in the afternoon. Hopefully I will not be stuck in traffic, because in America, that's the 4th of July weekend and we all drive and then sit in traffic forever. But by that point, we'll have had more than a week, and I'm kind of expecting people to be stuck. So I'm looking forward to questions. You hopefully will be looking forward to answers, and we'll have a productive week that week. So thanks for stopping by for office hours.